Welcome to The Last Transmission, the channel where we honor the stories of aviators whose courage, passion, and love for flight left a mark in the skies. Today we remember two legends, two men united by the same passion that defined their lives. Russ Francis, born April 3, 1953 in Seattle, Washington, an NFL superstar, a Super Bowl champion, and a lifelong aviator whose energy filled every hangar he entered. And Richard McSpadden, born July 29, 1963, in Panama City, Florida, a former Air Force fighter pilot, a respected leader, and the guiding voice of aviation safety across America. On October 1, 2023, both men took off together from Lake Placid Airport, New York, on what was meant to be a short scenic flight. But within minutes, their story would become one of the most heartbreaking reminders of how unforgiving the sky can be. On that calm autumn afternoon, the air over Lake Placid shimmered with golden light. The mountains stood silent, the same peaks that had watched over generations of pilots lifting into the sky. At the far end of the runway, a white and red Cessna 177 Cardinal sat waiting. Inside, two friends prepared for what was meant to be a short, beautiful flight over the Adirondacks. Russ Francis, the larger-than-life NFL legend, was at the controls. Decades after his football fame, flying had become his peace, the quiet rhythm of propellers replacing the roar of the crowd. Beside him sat Richard McSpadden, calm, focused, every inch the teacher he had always been, a man who had once commanded F-15 fighter jets, now devoted to keeping general aviation safer for everyone. Witnesses remember the two laughing, relaxed, checking instruments, chatting with the ground crew. Nothing felt out of the ordinary. But as the engine started and the Cessna began to taxi, a small hiccup broke the moment. The engine sputtered, hesitated for a second, then caught again. It was subtle, almost nothing. And yet, in aviation, even the smallest sound can change everything. Moments later, the Cessna lined up on runway 14. Russ pushed the throttle forward, and the airplane rolled smoothly down the asphalt strip. The Cardinal lifted off, slow, steady, climbing through the cool afternoon air. But those watching noticed something wasn't right. The aircraft wasn't climbing the way it should. The engine didn't sound full. At about 300 to 400 feet above the ground, the aircraft leveled slightly, turning left in formation with another plane flying nearby, a photographer capturing the beauty of the Adirondacks from above. Then in an instant, everything changed. The Cessna banked sharply right. From the ground, it looked like a quick decision, a sudden choice to turn back toward the runway. Pilots call it the impossible turn. When an engine fails right after takeoff, the instinct is to return home. But with little altitude, little speed, and too much drag, that turn becomes deadly. In the cockpit, Francis and McSpadden were fighting physics. The engine had lost partial power, enough to fly but not enough to climb. With the runway disappearing behind them and trees ahead, the only hope was to make it back. Francis banked hard, pulling the nose around. But the aircraft's center of gravity was too far forward, making it nose-heavy and harder to control at slow speed. The airspeed dropped. The lift vanished, and the Cessna stalled. Witnesses say the airplane pitched down sharply, disappearing behind a ridge near the end of the runway. Seconds later, a deep echoing thud rolled across the valley. Silence followed. When first responders arrived, they found the wreckage lying in a shallow ravine just beyond the airfield, only 440 feet short of the runway's end. Both men, Russ Francis and Richard McSpadden, were gone. The aviation world reeled in disbelief. Francis, the Super Bowl champion, was known for his humor and kindness, always talking about how flight gave him freedom beyond fame. McSpadden was a hero of a different kind, a teacher, a leader, and a man who had dedicated his life to saving others from exactly this kind of tragedy. In the months that followed, the NTSB investigation pieced together the final minutes of that flight. Their findings confirmed what many suspected: a partial loss of engine power, cause undetermined, a forward weight imbalance that made the aircraft harder to control, and a turn back toward the runway that proved too aggressive, too low, and too late. The report found no catastrophic mechanical failure, no single broken part. Instead, it was a convergence of tiny details, the kind that only reveal their danger when it's already too late. For pilots around the world, this accident hit home. If a man like Richard McSpadden, a champion of aviation safety, could be lost to such a moment, then anyone could. It became a stark reminder: when the engine quits, fly the airplane. Keep your airspeed. Land straight ahead if you can. The hardest choice may be the one that saves your life. At Lake Placid Airport today, the runway looks the same. The mountains are still breathtaking. The air still crisp. But for those who knew Russ and Richard, the silence carries a weight, a reminder of how fragile even the strongest wings can be. Two men, two legends, united by friendship, courage, and a shared love for flight. And though their final transmission will never be heard, their legacy continues to echo through every cockpit and hangar across the world. Because in the end, their story isn't about how they fell. It's about what they stood for, the unending pursuit of flight, and the eternal lesson that in the sky, respect for physics is respect for life itself. As the sun sets behind the Adirondack Mountains, the story of Russ Francis and Richard McSpadden remains etched into aviation history, a tribute to passion, friendship, and the lessons written in the sky. Their final flight reminds us that even legends can be caught by the smallest mistake, and that true mastery of flight is not in defying nature, but in understanding its limits. At Lake Placid, their memory lives on, in every engine start, in every cautious climb, in every pilot who remembers their names before taking off. This was the impossible turn, the story of two legends who gave everything to the skies they loved. You've been watching The Last Transmission, where every flight tells a story, and every story carries a lesson. If this story moved you, honor their memory by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and turning on notifications for more true aviation documentaries and real crash investigations, told with respect, truth, and humanity. Until next time, fly safe, and never forget, every takeoff is optional, but every landing is mandatory.